Welcome to the People Powered Community Podcast, where we dive into the inspiring stories of go-to-market professionals who have leveraged their skills to create strong and lasting connections within their community. Get ready to be inspired and learn how you too can harness your business superpower for good.
In today's digital world, your headshots are your first impression. They're everywhere. It's on your LinkedIn, it's on your company website, your social media channels. So having a new up-to-date headshot is really important, but getting a new headshot is not so easy. This is why I used Secta Labs. You can upload pictures of yourself to Secta Labs on a Saturday, on the couch, in your pajamas, just like I did. And 2 hours later, you'll have about 200 professional quality headshots to choose from. That's why I decided to partner with Secta Labs. They make getting a new professional quality headshot as easy as click, upload, save. So click the link in the show notes below, check out their website, upload your photos, and enhance your professional image. And don't forget to tag me, Leslie Greenwood, and the People Powered Community Podcast when you post your new headshots on LinkedIn. And now let's jump into today's episode.
Hello and welcome to the People Powered Community Podcast. I am here with Ravi Rajani, founder of Ravi Rajani Consulting. And how are you today, Ravi?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. This is going to be a good episode. It always is when it's just two friends hanging out and it's not, I don't know. That's what I find from my podcast. When it's two friends hanging out, it always just feels so different to somebody who I've never actually connected with before.
So much less pressure for those of us that are newbies in the podcast game. So for sure. Awesome. Well, let's start off with a little bit about you. Of course, I know your story, but tell me a little bit about Ravi, what you're doing now, maybe a little bit of what brought you to where you are, and let's go from there.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I definitely didn't pop out of my mother's womb and go, hold up, I want to be a storytelling speaker, communicator, communications consultant, all that stuff. That's just not how it really happens for anybody, I don't think. But for me, I really got my start with my mum. Leslie literally shoved me into the same dance school as my little sister when I was about 8 or 9 years old. But I remember really vividly that externally, I was mad. I was fuming because I was the only dude in school in dance class and I didn't want anyone to know. Eventually that secret did get out, but that's another story. But internally, I slowly started to fall in love with the stage, and unknowingly my mum had Miyagi'd me. Because she was unknowingly, I'd like to say, I think she'd say knowingly, giving me a lesson in public speaking, storytelling, and stage presence. Eventually, she let me quit, and I stumbled into theatre as a teen. I didn't know it, but my best friend's dad was a playwright. So one play led to another, which led to another, and then growing up, people would always say, yo, Rav, you're going to take this whole speaking, presenting, or acting thing seriously because we think you're pretty good at it. And Leslie, my mind went to this one thing, right? It went to the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, Greed is Good. And I was like, you know what I want to do? I want to work in sales and I want to work in the world of investment banking. So that's what I did, right? I finished up business school and I ended up on the trading floor over at Citibank, where I actually began my career in corporate sales. And it was everything I'd wanted on paper, but deep down, I felt this niggling misalignment, this feeling of misalignment, but I didn't listen to it for a long time. And eventually in 2016, I pressed eject and I said, you know what? I want to go do something different. And that's when I had what I now call, back then a portfolio career, where I was running sales teams in early stage startups. And when I say sales teams, me at some point, really trying to figure out product market fit, let alone product market interest, actually. And I was dabbling in the world of TV, radio, consulting, all that good stuff. But Leslie, over time, I realized three things. I realized that one, why do all presentations lack personality? It's like it was illegal to bring your true personality to the table. Why do they all look and feel exactly the same? You can listen to 15 demos or presentations a day. They'll be exactly the same. The final thing is why do they have little to no storytelling? So September 2020, I launched my business, and over time, the mission has evolved and really incorporated a lot of things I just mentioned. But today, talking to you right now, Leslie. I'm the human being that helps B2B sales teams sell more through the art of storytelling. And hey, here we are.
I think September 2020 is when we met. Probably about the time you launched your business, because I started working at Pavilion in July of 2020. So I'm guessing we met about that time.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was November, and don't quote me on that, November or December, but it must have been very, very very early on, no doubt. But hey, haven't looked back since, and I've met some dope people along the way. You know, it's been a cool journey.
Cool that you actually remember that it was November, December. I'll take that as a supreme compliment. You remember when we actually first talked.
Yeah, I did. I remember the conversation.
I cannot even imagine you as an investment banker on the floor of Citibank. I mean, the Ravi that I know now, the Ravi that, you know, like has evolved over time and probably stepped out of what he thought the expectations were of your life. Yeah. I can't even come up with a mental picture. Did you wear like a blue pinstripe suit and a white shirt and a tie too?
Oh yeah, as in I still love wearing a suit. Like
you do.
For me, oh yeah, exactly. And I think you know that from a lot of my videos, right? But I love, you know, there's nothing better than a great fitting suit. So I still love that. I've still got that inside of me. But yeah, I did. You know, I used to wear the pressed shirts. I used to wear a tie when I used to go to meetings. You know, shoes shined. And it's funny. You know, I met some incredible people who are friends for life, but I had to experience that to know what I did want. And the truth is Leslie, if you had asked me in my early 20s, if you had told me in my early 20s that this is what I'd be doing now, I would have maybe believed you, because I was secretly learning all these different things that would have helped me got to where I am now. But, you know, back then I wanted to be a managing director in the world of banking. I thought I was going to be there for years. But, you know, I think deep down on some level, my ego is chasing status and potentially wanting to feel enough. Right.
Yep.
And I've had an evolution over the years, which has helped me do inner work, but also realize what alignment feels like for me. And I think that's an amazing career for the right person. But for me, over time, I realized it just wasn't in alignment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think maybe all of us, I know I have been in that same position where you're chasing status or a title, but it just doesn't feel right for you. So, well, gosh, that's an amazing story. Let's talk a little bit about your superpower. Now, I asked you on our form what that was, and I have an idea of what I think your superpower is based on our 3 years of interactions now. But I would love to hear from you what your superpower is. And you've kind of actually led us up to how you got there, but define it for us and tell us how you use that in your life right now.
Yeah, no doubt. So my wife will tell you there's many things I'm not good at, right? She'll tell you that. But I think one of the things that is in my wheelhouse is being able to use effective communication and storytelling as a vehicle to help those that I interact with feel that they can be unapologetically self-expressed regardless of the environment that they're in. Meaning, be who they really are versus who they think they should be. And here's what I mean. How many times have we minimized who we are in certain environments to fit in? Yep. Or how many times have we not showed up as who we really are because of fear of judgment? And I felt all of those things, right? And I feel like today, that is the byproduct of all of my work. Everything I really do, for me, it should always loop into that mission.
So I want to just repeat the part of your superpower that really resonates with me, which is unapologetically self-expressed.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I see where, and I kind of talked about this the other day about a point of view, having a point of view on how you're going to treat your customers from the moment you interact with them and using that as an anchor, because life change, fast moving startups change very quickly. And if you don't have that anchor, what you are definitely going to stay with no matter what. It's very easy to become less customer focused, less, things like that. So it sounds to me that your mission truly is your anchor. Your business has evolved over time, but that's been your anchor throughout. What would you say to that?
Yeah, knowingly and unknowingly, if that makes sense. Knowingly and unknowingly. And I think the truth is as in, yeah, how best to describe it? I'm thinking out loud is, yes, it's definitely the anchor, and it's also a filter for who I connect with. Meaning, if I said that to you, which I just did, you said, oh my God, that really connects, that part about feeling or being unapologetically self-expressed, right? Because your energy and value system is aligned with that. Mm-hmm. But somebody else, they could go, all right, okay, you're weird. I'll see you later though, right? And that's cool. So it should intentionally attract and repel. So yes, it not only acts as a anchor, but for me, it also acts as a filter for if I'm showing up with the right energy, there's no way that I will appeal to everybody in the world, right? There's no way that my energy will make, out of 100 people, there's going to be a percentage of people go, he's not my guy. And that's cool. That's good. Because if I was everybody's guy, then I would question if I am showing up unapologetically self-expressed or if I'm being a chameleon. And I think we've all been there in the world of sales where we act like a chameleon. And I think that can end up leaving you feeling like, who am I? Like, where's my identity? So long-winded way of saying yes.
That's amazing. I love that perspective. I've never actually thought about that way because I have maybe a unique style. I am definitely not everyone's cup of tea. I have never thought of it in the way of attract and repel. And that is kind of enlightening and freeing that's okay. I mean, I think many of us are people pleasers. So the fact that that's just meant to be repellent, that's good. I can see the attraction. I know that you and I both attract people that have similar mindsets. You and I definitely have similar mindsets on growth and everything, but that is just profound, Ravi, profound.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. And I do feel like it's harder to do when you don't have evidence. Here's what I mean. Okay. So if you don't have evidence for other human beings who are aligned with you, it is so much scarier to put yourself out there because you're like, if you are around people who are like, oh, I don't get you, and suddenly online, you may feel that you'll receive the same reaction until that one person goes, oh my God, your energy is everything. I love it. Like, when can we connect? Suddenly you start gathering this evidence and it gets to a point where your people are out there, right? Because there's enough evidence supporting that. But I think at the beginning, that's why it's so hard for people to do because there's a lack of evidence in their minds.
Mm-hmm. I think that's if anybody's out there listening to this and they're thinking about how they show up on LinkedIn or if they're going to show up on LinkedIn, I think that's a really good lesson for them to take away, that there is someone out there. And you'll get that DM. I'm sure you get them. Like, oh, what you said yesterday was really meaningful. And you're like, I've never heard of you, but wow, you've never liked anything. And those are just amazing moments. And I think people that step out there on LinkedIn are going to definitely see that.
I hope so. And I think LinkedIn's a funny world because I do think LinkedIn's a lot kinder than the world of Instagram or YouTube. You've not got smartypants84 at yahoo.com sitting there in their lounge eating ice cream, just hurling abuse at people. I think LinkedIn, look, any platform, there's going to be people who aren't aligned with you. But I think overall, LinkedIn is the kindest platform of them all. And I think also because people are connected with their companies, right?
True. You got to kind of have a certain modicum of behavior. Let's dive into your superpower and how that intertwines with how you work in community, think about community, what part community plays in your life. Like, how do those two things, mesh together for you?
So I was in Chicago in January speaking at a sales kickoff, and I was on the plane up there crafting the sequence of my first 6 to 8 minutes of when I show up. So I always like to sequence out a presentation in a very intentional way, but the first time somebody really connects with your energy, I think is very important because it sets the tone for the remainder of the presentation. Right. So I started putting together my story, okay? And I'm putting together my story, putting together my sequence, and I'm sort of visualizing it in my mind, okay? And I've written it out. And then I get to my hotel, and on that morning and the day before, I'm rehearsing it. Like just that first 8 minutes, I'm rehearsing it. And if I notice that I'm holding back a part of me, or if I'm saying something which isn't actually how I would say it. So I may say something like, I felt scared. You know what I'm saying? I was scared. And I would say it in that way. But if I'm saying it when I'm practicing like, and I felt very petrified, I would say, well, hold on. That's not Rav, right? So am I showing up as who I really am? So what I'll engage in is a routine just before I go out and deliver a presentation, which cultivates that energy. So for example, if I want my audience to feel excitement just before I go on stage or a couple of hours before, I may watch something to do with Kevin Hart, right? Because I love Kevin Hart. And it makes me feel excited, right?
You need to put his picture back there.
Yeah,
you're missing a picture of him.
100%. That needs a rearrange, 100%. But if I think about, if I want my audience to feel empathy, I may watch something like, or vulnerability. I may watch something like Brene Brown to make me incorporate that energy. So what I really try and do is shift my state in accordance with the feeling I'm trying to cultivate. And when I do that, engage in a pre-presentation routine, it relaxes me and it allows me to show up as who I really am versus who I think the audience might want me to be. So when I do that, you know, it always results in good. So for example, after that, I delivered that story, and after the presentation, this young lady came up to me and she's like, you know what, when you mentioned about you and your wife having your daughter, firstly, congratulations. And I remember how scared I was. And when you said that, it made me feel X. Oh my God, like I feel like I already know you. And that for me is one way to cultivate community, is through sharing snippets of your story that you're willing to share, have processed and have tangible takeaways from, and doing so in a way that is just filled with youisms. Like you, from the way you walk, from the way you talk, from the way it's sequenced out. It should really incorporate your energy. And when you do that, once again, you will attract and you will repel, but the ones that you attract will unknowingly become a part of your community. And for me, we know you and I have spoken about this. I don't have right now an enclosed community like a Slack channel or anything like that, but I have a podcast in other areas, and the idea is over time to have more people enter my world. What do you think? How do you see your superpower cultivating community?
I think for me, my superpower, as we talked about in your podcast, is being able to connect and create rapport with people virtually fairly easily. Like just within a few minutes of a call, we can start to feel each other out and understand each other's energy, and then start sharing, being vulnerable in those moments, and able to get from 0 to that 10 fairly quickly and naturally. So for me, obviously when I'm in lots of communities, but that makes it very easy to, have those conversations with basically strangers who, many of them now I consider friends. And when I'm traveling the world, I will be stopping at all the places and having coffee with, 8,000 people that I've never met before. And so, that's how I use it in community, because I'm creating this community around me. I'm participating in the communities that I'm part of and I'm invested in. And then, using LinkedIn, I guess, to storytell, which I'm going to work on my skills. Ravi, I need to start watching all of your videos and trainings and YouTubes, but like storytelling and using that to also kind of bolster up, my community until there's time for you. Just like you, there may be a time when I have a community of some sort. Maybe there won't be a time, but in the meantime, those are the places that I that I use it. What communities are you mostly active in right now?
Not many, and that's very intentionally, because I'm a big protector of my energy, especially with a 6-month-old daughter.
Yes.
But communities right now, and not from communities that like I partner with and I do work for. I mean, like let's say like with spare time where I'd pop into, the main one is Pavilion. The main one is Pavilion.
I'd say LinkedIn. I mean, for you, even though it's not an owned community, it's, I call that like, that's your rented community for right now.
Yeah.
But you have definitely created a community within LinkedIn. Like you can, I mean, obviously you can't actually see it, but you can see it and you can feel it, because there are people around you that, are resonating with your message. You definitely have people that follow you, and well, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just a super fan and I assume everybody's just like me, Ravi. I don't know.
Well, look, firstly, I thank you for acknowledging me, and I receive your compliment with open arms. I'd like to think so, and I think you're right, actually. I'll correct that. LinkedIn is definitely where I hang out the most. And you know what's funny? I honestly feel like there's people in my life who I've met virtually through LinkedIn who actually know me better and have a better context of who I am today than some people who've known me for years.
I'd agree with that.
In person. And I don't know if it's something I've always struggled with, which is like, I think the ability to find people who are like-minded there's never been a bigger opportunity for that than ever before. But what I do miss is this, you and I, face to face, right? Like, even though virtual has so many benefits, I would just love the opportunity to have a lot of the relationships that I've cultivated on LinkedIn, but in person. And I think I crave that. That is something that I'm deficient in, is that in-person element of connection where you feel deeply understood. I get it online every single day, which is incredible, but I'm a sucker for in-person, man. I'm a sucker for in-person.
I live in Dallas.
Yeah, only 11 hours away, but yeah, you live in Dallas.
I mean, yeah, that makes it easy. We'll just hop on our private jets and head over there. I mean, it's not like you have a 6-month baby or anything, and not like I have 3 kids that I have to go to college or anything. So, well, let's kind of like wrap this in a bow and talk about, tell me one action item or one thing that, let's say someone thinks their superpower is similar to yours. What's one thing they could take away today to start developing that superpower, and maybe think about, how they're going to use that in their community one day?
I would say that when it comes to, I think the vehicle that I use, as I said, is storytelling and communication, effective communication. I can't, you'll see me on LinkedIn or wherever. I don't really talk about much else. I stay very focused in my lane. So I can only really talk about from that aspect. And what I would say is, I get asked the question all the time, Ravi, how do I become a more impactful speaker, communicator, or storyteller? And let's assume you're using that to fulfill a similar outcome like I am. People assume it's with tactics and strategies, but I see it as it's twofold. The first piece is the inner work. And I'll tell you why. Whether that's therapy, coaching, whatever you feel comfortable with listening to this right now, if you're not comfortable in your own skin and you're not comfortable with your message and story, there's no tactic that will make you magnetic. I know people who don't follow traditional tactics of removing filler words, doing this, doing that, but they are magnetic because they don't try and be anybody but themselves when they're on stage. So I think the ability to truly tap into who you are, be comfortable with that, and actually listen to what people want from you will allow you to be charismatic, truly attract the right people. And then the strategies, the tactics, the sequencing of presentations, all that stuff can overlay on a solid foundation. So I'd say if somebody's listening to this right now is like, I want to be a better speaker, I want to be a communicator, let's not jump straight to tactics of video challenges and all that, which actually can inadvertently make you comfortable in your own skin because it's quite therapeutic. But I do think really working on the areas where you feel inner work is required the most can be game changing. And I'll leave you with this. I'll give you somewhere to look. Think about in the past 24 hours, what you were unknowingly triggered by. And the interesting thing is your triggers are mirrors. So what you're being triggered by is secretly directing you to places which may require healing. So if you look at that, you can actually start thinking about where there's room for healing. And once you start deeply doing the work, which is uncomfortable in those areas, you'll feel so much more comfortable with showing up as who you really are. But when we just focus on the strategies, guess what? There always may be that feeling of, why doesn't this feel how I thought it would? Why do I not feel like X? Why do I not feel fulfilled? So, hey, just like you, I'm work in progress, but that's something that I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. The strategy is like the icing on the cake. So you have to actually build a really nice cake first. And if your ingredients are off, you forgot the baking powder, and you're not doing that work, you have nothing to put the icing on. So I like that analogy. And I would say as I take this and I think about my process, I think when you and I met first, I had never done a podcast. I was scared to do podcasts. I rejected every opportunity to do a podcast. And I have just, as of last year, continually said yes to things that make me uncomfortable. If you'd asked me a year ago or 2 years ago if I would be hosting a podcast, oh, holy heck, no. And so those are the uncomfortable things that are forcing me to think about and inspect how I'm showing up and how I'm, participating in the world of business and in life.
I feel you, my friend. And I think that's a classic example of, after a certain point, no more amount of clarity comes from thought. It comes from action. So what I'm not telling people, in disclaimer, is just sit there and do a ton of deep work and take no action. Right? It should inspire you to take action in a way where there's less resistance and pain, but it doesn't mean you just don't take action and you sit there. So I think yours is a classic example of, did one podcast, did another, and now you got your own, right? So I guarantee along that way, you've had some incredible moments of reflection. And actually that leads me to a question for you. What's one thing internally that you've been able to unlock which you hadn't before until you started podcasting?
Confidence in my voice. So that's why you're unapologetically self-expressed. I think that's why it resonates with me, because I think I've spent a lot of time editing myself because I know that I can be maybe too much. Or, I've been told or internalized that, I'm to this or to that, and I'm letting that go. It's, it's me, and like you said, we'll attract the people that are meant to attract, repel the people we're meant to repel, and then that will help me build a very strong, viable, rewarding, and satisfying community around me.
I agree, my friend. And you said something, about the term unapologetically self-expressed. When I first heard it, don't quote me, it was from a silent mentor, but I think it was around 2018-ish, 2018 to 2019. And sometimes you can get something and you can hear it, but maybe it's not the right time and place for you to truly hear it. So if you're listening to this podcast right now and it's not connecting, that's cool. But there could be, 2 years down the line, you listen to this again, you're like, oh gosh, yeah, I get it. So I think sometimes you've got to be in the right season of your life to be able to receive a message. Otherwise, it's going to go over your head.
Or, write it on your board. Write it down on a sticky note, and maybe it'll just sit on your computer or your desk, like you said, for years. And then when the time is right, you'll pay attention, and there we go. So, Ravi, I have so appreciated having you on this podcast. I've really enjoyed this. You are I'm just going to layer on the platitudes here, but like you're a great guest, obviously. So you're a great person to have on my podcast. You're a great human. Like a good human is a very large compliment for me, and that is something I totally feel about you. So tell us how we can find you, how we can learn more about you, your story, and how you attack storytelling.
Yeah, well, I think firstly, once again, I receive your compliment with open arms. I think, yeah, being a good human, that's a big one. That's a big compliment. So I appreciate you for that. Where can you find me? So, as Leslie said, where I hang out a lot is LinkedIn. So at Ravi Rajani. And, I'm going to go against my own advice here and give you 2 call to actions. I always say only give 1 people. You don't want to confuse people. But I also have my own show, which is called The Influential Communicator, which Leslie was on. So ton of episodes, solo, guest, all that good stuff on effective storytelling to win more revenue. So, hey, I'll see you there if you're interested.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate having you on. If you are building out community and looking to find evangelists inside of your business, you can always connect with me at Chief Evangelist Consulting. All of these links will be in the show notes, so feel free to connect with Ravi there and follow us on social. That is all for this episode. We will see you next week, and thank you for your time for taking a listen today.